Hello again, everyone. Today I am here to show you a couple of nibs that I ground myself. They are contained in these two pens, so that's why they are here. I had been talking about these nibs for a while and I wanted to just go ahead and show them on the channel. Part of the reason why I do want to kind of wrap some things up is because I'm probably going to be taking a little bit of a hiatus on this YouTube channel after this week that I am posting. This should be, there should be a full week of videos this week, but I am going to be taking some time off just because I'm experiencing a little bit of burnout in all aspects of my life. So it's just time to take a little bit of break, and I do plan to come back. But if you don't see any videos starting next week, that's why. Okay. So, and oh, I do want to mention that I do still have a list of requests and things that I planned on filming. I probably won't be filming any of those anytime soon, but I will come back and start back in again. When I do start back in again, I probably will be doing fewer videos per week. I've been doing 5 per week, and part of that is because from the very beginning, I had a lot of ideas of different things to post, and then I would record a whole bunch of things and then they would stack up. So I kind of had to post a lot so that I could cover all of those things that I had. But I just think it's time for a little break, and it's just a break. I'm not going away forever, but I know a lot of people have mentioned the fact that they look forward to my videos, and I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you all watching and liking my content. So I just want to let you know that I will be back. I think I'm going to have this scheduled for a Thursday, so there will be one more after today, and then a little bit of a break. And I'll try not to be gone too long, but it really just depends on how long I need to kind of, have a restorative break and recover. But all that said, now let's get back to these pens, which contain these nibs that I ground myself. I have my fountain pen testing A5 zip folio here from Galen. I'll put a link below to the video where I go through this setup, the newer version of this setup. And let me find a page so that I can kind of test these out for you. And oh, and one other thing I wanted to mention. So one of these does have a diamine ink in it, and I've actually been, oh, that was my last page. Okay, well then I'll go back to the Tomoe River book here. All the timing is coming together for taking a break, I think. One of the things I did want to mention is that I think I kind of confused myself about the pronunciation of diamine. So many people corrected me about my pronunciation of the ink company as diamine is what I was saying for a long time. And then I kind of went back. Then I went to saying it properly, and then I went back to saying it improperly. And I think it's all just indicative of my need for a break, because I just have so many different things going on in my life. But unfortunately, work has been, like, my real job, my day job, has been taking up way too much of my time. And I kind of need some just downtime other than that. But anyway, so this pen, I don't think I've shown this one on the channel before. I may have shown it on other social media, but this is from River City Pens, and it is this really beautiful, I don't know what the name of it is, but it is a really beautiful sort of tealish green sparkly pen. I've been getting more of these hand-turned pens just because I like the look of them so much, and it's kind of nice because the majority of them come with Yovo nibs, which means that you can swap them out pretty easily. And I'd been liking that aspect of my Franklin Christophs, which are obviously sort of like in a separate little category of a little bit more of a larger company, because these are usually individuals making these pens. But this is from River City Pens. This and I can't remember the model either. It's their flagship model, the main model that they make. That's what this one is. and then it's made out of this diamond cast material. And then this one is a Ranga pen, which I'm pretty sure you've probably seen at some point on the channel. This is a Monterey version, which is made out of teal or dark green. I think it actually is called teal, but this is probably more what I would consider teal. Maybe this is dark teal and this is light teal. But this is a model specific to Peyton Street pens. So it's an ebonite pen with a little twist threads here on the back so that you can post your pen. I don't usually do this with the pen because it does, first off, it's a little hard to get the threads to take here. And then when you do, see, it's also hard to do when trying to hold it up for the camera. But when you do, the pen is so long that it's almost comic. So I generally do not post this pen. But since this one's already open, let's go ahead and talk about this nib first. So this is actually, although I'm showing it to you first, this is the nib I made second. This is an Architect nib. And this one I didn't necessarily use any particular tutorial. I just basically Googled how do I make an Architect nib, and then there were some YouTube videos and that sort of thing, and I just kind of followed those. But I use the same set of tools for both of these that I'll talk about a little bit later. But as you can see, an Architect nib has a little bit of an angled tip here, and then it's also angled on the sides as well. And the result of that, let me get in here a little bit. The result of that is that you get a thin downstroke and then a wider side stroke. Now this is not as pronounced as it could be, I suppose, but this was starting with a medium nib, and I probably could have ground a little bit more off of the sides to make this line even thinner, to make this difference more pronounced, but I quite like it. I think it's pretty good for my first intentional Architect nib. I've mentioned on this channel before that when I was trying to tune and smooth one of my Lamy gold nibs, I actually ended up with an accidental Architect because I took too much off the sides. And I actually really like it the way it is, but this is a more intentional version of that. So let's go ahead and do the quick brown fox here. I'm going to do both cursive and just block writing. And I don't know if you can hear that or not, but actually let me zoom in even more. You can't really see that very well, can you? You can hear a little bit of scraping on the page, but it really is because this particular line is so sharp, because you kind of angle the nib into a little wedge so that you get that shape there. So the Architect nibs really shine with block lettering though. I also feel like it shines even more with all capital letters, because you can really see, oops, you can really see the variation in the downstrokes and the side strokes a little bit better when you're doing capital letters. So there's that. Like I said, I don't really have any particular tutorial to recommend. I just did a little bit of Googling. And like I said, I'm going to talk about the materials I use because I use the same for both. And I'll go over that real quick. So there's that one. And then this was the very first one that I did. And this is a stub nib. Oh, let me actually label this one here as a medium Architect. medium architect nib. And then this one is a medium stub. So they're both with medium nibs. And I will show you this one. Ooh, let's see. So it's a little bit harder to tell with this one, but basically a stub has a sort of flattened off top, and then the tipping material, sorry, I keep having a hard time finding the lens there. The tipping material, you grind it off on the top and on the bottom. So it's basically like creating a little squared off end so that you get that line variation. And it's, like I said, it is kind of hard to tell here, but you will see when I write with it that there is line variation. So this one is a medium stub nib. So with the downstrokes, you get a little bit of a wider stroke, and with the side strokes, you get a little bit of a narrower stroke. And again, it's not super duper pronounced. I probably could get, you know, with a little more practice, I could get some more variation in there. But this one, I think, writes quite nice. I really like it for cursive. Let's do the quick brown frocks again. Okay, and then I will do block lettering. And I think I still need to do a little bit of work to try and get these hand ground nibs a little bit smoother, but I'm pretty impressed with myself, I must say, for just sort of, you know, out of the box with materials you can just have around at home that are pretty inexpensive. You don't need a grinding wheel or anything like that. Oh, I did want to mention what the inks were. Let me make sure you can actually see. So this one is Diamine Desert Burst. And then this one is Waterman Mysterious Blue. Okay, and I will show you these a little bit closer up. I did follow a tutorial for the stub nib because that was the first one I did. And it was actually a tutorial that I got off of Endless Pens. So I will put a link to that tutorial. And I kind of showed the materials that I used on a prior video when I talked about this setup. So I have pretty much all of the materials in here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see. So in here I have my nib tuning kit, but what I started with for these were these two different grits of sandpaper, and these are you know, a little bit bigger of a grit than micro mesh is. So I started with the 800 and 1500 grit sandpaper. So the 800 is a little bit more gritty than the 1500. So basically I went from here, you can kind of see the marks where I went back and forth. So with both of these, I think it's really just about getting the angle right and keeping that angle consistent when you're grinding them. So with the stub nib, you have to grind back and forth so that this bottom end is flat. You have to go back and forth so the top end is flat, and then you have to turn it over and grind so that well, I guess this is the nib end, but then the top also has to be flat. So you really just have to keep that angle. And then with the architect nib, you really just have to do it at sort of a 45-degree angle first, side to side, and then you have to make sure you get the angle roughly the same on both sides of the nib when you're grinding it side to side. And then you do the same things on the bigger grit, which is the 800, which is the smaller number grit sandpaper, and that worked pretty well. So I just did all of the different edges on the larger sandpaper. Then I did all of the edges again with the smaller sandpaper, and then I tested that out, and then I had to go back and forth and like adjust as necessary. Although once I went away from the larger grit, I stayed at the 1500 grit. And then once I felt like it kind of had the look of the line that I was looking for, then I flossed the tines with this little brass sheet. And that's important because you could end up having a lot of debris in the end of your nib. You could also rinse it out. Some of this I did without ink in the pen, and some of it I did with ink in the pen. The tutorial for the stub nib tells you when to put ink in. And I would say, you know, if you're Googling and you want to do an architect nib, just see how you feel about that and what the different people say. I think I did this with ink in the pen, but you don't have to, and it's kind of messy that way. It'll get everywhere. But I think I started the basics without it, because you can see this was just dry. Yeah, here I did a little bit with the ink in the pen, but for the majority of it, it was just dry. So I started with those two, and then I went on to smoothing like I would smooth any other nib. So started with the micro mesh, which my micro mesh is very well loved. And then the final step was going on to the smoothing tools, which is these Mylar paper sheets. One is a little bit bigger than the other. And then, like I said, I probably still could have smoothed these a little bit more and gotten a little bit of a smoother feel, but they seem fine to me for just general writing. I'm not sure if they will change much just through regular writing, but if at any point they feel like they're out of alignment, or you know, they just aren't smooth enough, I will go back and I probably won't go back to the higher grit sandpapers, but I probably would go back to the micro mesh and just see if I could smooth them a little bit. But I think that's all I wanted to cover today. That's pretty much it. So, well, actually, so these nibs, these were nibs that I just had laying around because I had taken them off of other pens that I had put custom grinds on or something like that, because I've been ordering custom grinds online and things like that. So it's a whole new nib and not using the nib that I have. And I felt like I could be really, I didn't have to be precious with these particular nibs because I have so many, especially medium-sized Jovo nibs, that I felt like I could just play around with them. But I did not ruin any nibs. But, you know, if you want to try these and you end up ruining a nib, just make sure it's something that you don't feel precious about, and it's fine that, you know, if you do ruin it, you have another one to start again and learn from your mistakes, etc. So, so yeah, and it's nice to have some sort of like junk nibs too. Like I take a lot of nibs off of Gin House or Moonman pens. I mean, those are all nibs that you could work with, but they do need to be in a pen with a feed. That is one thing. Otherwise, you won't be able to test it out. And I just really think it would be really hard to get the angle right without an actual pen, a nib in the pen for leverage and all that kind of thing. I can't remember what pens. I think I did have the pens on the this Ranga, and then I had this one on a different Ranga, because I kind of feel like the Rangas, they're somewhat inexpensive for what they are, and I felt a little less precious about those fountain pens. So if I slipped and got my pen on the micro mesh or something, or the sandpaper, I didn't feel like it was the end of the world. But I didn't do that either. I just was really careful. And if you are going to be working with ink in your pen, I would suggest putting some paper over your whatever surface you're working on if you don't want it to get messed up, because ink could end up splattering or, you know, getting flicked onto your table. But I was really careful, and everything ended up working out, and I'm really happy with the results. I'm not sure So these are the only two that I have attempted, and I'm not sure if there's any sort of specific method for like a cursive italic or something like that. Stub nibs, architect nibs, they seem to be sort of the I say easy, easier grinds, but there's just like a few different angles that you need to get at to use the sandpaper on. But and you know, stub nibs, all of the italic and stub nibs, like the variation for different grinds are pretty much all the same. Like here you have this thinner line and this thicker line. If I were to make this into a cursive italic, in theory, assuming I was going for the same line weight, would have the same line across and the same line down. It's just the transition between the two is different. So with a stub nib, the transition between the two is not as noticeable in your writing, whereas if you have an italic nib, it's the most noticeable, I think, of the three of stub, cursive italic, and italic. Italic has no tipping material and it's kind of sharp to write with, but your transitions, you'll see the biggest difference in your writing between thick and thin lines. And this one is the one where you'll see the least amount, but I really like the way it makes my handwriting look regardless. And then the cursive italic is kind of in the middle and is I also really love a cursive italic. I probably like a cursive italic a little bit more than I like a stub nib, but I haven't really looked into whether I could make those at home without a grinding wheel or something like that. But this is baby steps for for starting my own custom grinds, and these are really just for myself. I don't plan to ever make these for other people. But okay, I think that really does cover everything I wanted to cover today. If you had any questions, feel free to ask below and I will get to them as soon as I can. For comments on any of the other videos while I'm on my hiatus, I might not get back to you as quickly as I normally do, but I will be checking in occasionally. So if there are any questions, I will answer them eventually. So I think that's all I had. Feel free to subscribe to keep track of future videos on my channel when I get back to them. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. And until next time, have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.